So, here's for something weird today. We're going to talk about Magic: The Gathering. Welcome on in, Dragon Folk. I hope you guys are having a fantastic morning. I am making this literally as the sun is rising because I had too much caffeine. I was supposed to be at work today, and then I got told that I got the day off. So we get to do some stuff. So I am going to go ahead and make a quick video talking about a little bit of a question that a lot of TCG players have in their mind. And it might be, again, another wonderful discussion video for a lot of people. So let me know if you guys, what your side is, how you feel about these things in the comments down below. And I'm going to make some comparisons to Flesh and Blood as well. So for you Flesh and Blood fans who watch the channel, just know that this is still relevant in either way. We're mainly talking about what one considers a collectible piece of cardboard, right? So recently, Ravnica Remastered just came out. This set, these guys just came out, and it is something that a lot of players are super excited for because it's one of their favorite planes. They love the characters from Ravnica, everything about the Guild Pact and all that, and especially it's a wonderful hype to get into Murders at Karlov Manor, which is another Ravnica set, but it's in the mainline story of Magic: The Gathering. Now, something that is on everybody's mind is the pull rates for which we are now seeing Shocklands. For those of you who don't know what a Shockland is a mana source. That's the way you play Magic is you tap lands for mana. Unless you, of course, have mana dorks, but that's a different video. So you have lands, and there are certain lands that are prized among others. And it's usually lands that can tap for 2 different kinds of mana, and it comes into play untapped. Those are normally the best kind of land for you to get, strictly because they do exactly that. They come into play untapped, and you can change your game plan depending on if you needed black mana or red mana, right? For Blood Crypt, for instance. Now, Shocklands, the reason they're called Shocklands is because when they come into play tapped unless you pay 2 life, in which case then they come into play untapped. And Shocklands have been a huge power level for a lot of players throughout Magic: The Gathering. They have been up there in the level of lands. Most competitive players have Shocklands, like you practically need them for your deck. The same goes for fetch lands. Fetch lands are a different thing. We had a few of those come out recently in Modern Horizons 2. I should say recently, but I guess that was like a long time ago. They came out in Modern Horizons 2. And I'm sure the next round of those will come out in Modern Horizons 3, where we'll see the allied fetch lands. And fetch lands, all they do is you tap them, you put them into your grave, and then you get to bring out or you pay 1, tap it, you get to bring a land type of one of the 2 based on the dual part of the land out from your deck onto the battlefield. So normally the rate is you play a fetch land, you crack it, you go get a shock land, because shocklands also have the basic land types of the lands of the mana that I can create. So it's very important for, thinning out your deck and getting mana sources out faster, so on and so forth. So anywho, enough about how to play Magic. Let's talk about why I'm talking about these cards. Ravnica Remastered just came out, and they reprinted all 10 Shocklands in this set. Not only did they reprint all 10 Shocklands in the set, they reprinted them in 4 different styles. I believe you have the regular style, you have the borderless, you have the retro frame, and you have a serialized version. I'm going to go as far as to say there's probably 5, but I know there's at least 4. 4 different kinds of the same type of Shockland. So, your odds are very good, especially if you're opening up collector packs, of getting a Shockland. It might not be the Shockland you want, but it is a Shockland. And it seems that the rate at which LGSs and other sellers are cracking open these boxes, there are tons of Shocklands per pack, per case even. And normally that is a very good thing if you're a player, right? Because if you're looking for these cards and you don't have any, then it's cool to open them up and be like, oh, cool, I got a shock. Like, I'm so excited. I can put that in my next deck I want to make. But in this case, for sellers, it turns out to be significantly worse in their end because shocks used to have a decent amount of value back in the day when there were only a few of them in circulation, even though shocks have had tons of different variations available for at least a decade now, it seems. And you see just more and more get churned out. And the more these Shocklands get reprinted and the more that they're readily accessible in like a ton of different product, the less their price becomes on the open market, right? It's no longer like a rare land to get from like an older set and they don't normally print it as often. Now they're reprinting these land bases pretty frequently. But what they're doing also in the same route, and don't get me wrong, not entirely on Wizard's side for everything they do, obviously, like the bad stuff is bad. But what they're doing here, I think a lot of people tend to be overlooking, which is while Shocklands are going to be fairly inexpensive, especially with the pull rates we are seeing from Ravnica Remastered, I'm not going to say that they're going to be under $5 because I think that's preposterous. If they get under $5, I suggest everybody just pick up a play set of each and then you're good to go. You don't have to worry about ever buying a Shockland ever again a day in your life. But if they ever go under $5, it's just a show of how much is hitting the market and how many people are not buying them. Because new players coming into the game might not have Shocklands. But old players who've been playing the game for a while probably still have Shocklands from back in like Return to Ravnica, or even just like OG Ravnica. They probably have Shocklands from back then. So because of that, the older generation of Magic players are probably not getting a ton of shocks. But the new generation of Magic players need shocks. Everybody who comes in to an LGS and picks up a pre-con because they want to play with their friends, and their friends all play pre-cons at the same LGS and they meet every Friday, they want a way to upgrade their deck, and for, anywhere between $5 to $10, except I think right now they're going for like $13, $15 a Shockland. You're able to get a Shockland to boost the power of your deck. And I think that is really, really good for players. The downside, of course, like I had said previously, is that this also hurts people who are investing, right? People who are speculating. There's always the tried and true term in Magic, which is invest in real estate, right? Real estate being land, and just any land that is necessary for people in their decks. It is always good to maybe not like invest in, but to have a decent amount of, so that way if the prices ever do spike, it's because the market is trying to meet the demand and you have the supply. And so you can then change your prices to be based on that. Now, on the flip side of this being the case, right? People are now looking at shocks and they're going, that's a toxic asset. Don't worry about it. It should have been a toxic asset from the beginning. If there's a single kind of land that you should be looking for, it's a land that is based on the reserve list. The reserve list is, they're not going to reprint any of that stuff. So you're good to buy lands that were on the reserve list, right? City of Shadows. I think City of Traders is on there too. The dual lands from Revised, or even before, if you have the money for that. But overall, anything that is not on the reserve list is free reign for Wizards of the Coast to reprint as many times as they want. And this is going to be the case going forward, probably for a ton of stuff, because they have new product dropping so frequently that the rate at which an old card that has not gotten a reprint in a while will get a reprint is very, very likely. So investing in anything that isn't on the reserve list is not normally a good idea. Now, obviously, collecting is completely different. You can collect whatever the hell you want. That's totally awesome. But something they did in Ravnica Remastered that a lot of people are not talking about is the fact that they also, in turn of making a ton of different kinds of Shocklands, they also made the rarest Shocklands to date outside of like the Zendikar expeditions. I'm actually probably certain that the Zendikar expeditions have more of a print run than these serialized versions of the Shocklands. They came out with serialized versions of the Shocklands, so X out of 500 is normally the number they go with. So each of these Shocklands, you have a chance when you open a collector's pack to get a serialized copy of a Shockland. Now, that I personally consider a collector piece because everybody loves Shocklands, and if you want to have a rare Shockland to flex on your opponents with, then a serialized Shockland is the way to go about doing that. I imagine they're eventually going to go the same route with fetch lands, and I don't know, maybe even fast lands, maybe pain lands. I'm not sure when they're going to stop, right, with that whole thing. But in making a bunch of these other pieces cheaper, they have in the same realm, made a very, very precious collectible for Magic the Gathering. This is often kind of like the case how I talk about with the Marvel dragons from Uprising in Flesh and Blood. In Flesh and Blood, Uprising is a set where you had these dragons for the Dragon Illusionist hero Dromai, and all of the dragons that you could play in the deck are at rare level, which is like uncommon for Magic, and then majestic level, which is like rare for Magic. And any one of them is like cents on the dollar, right? But if you wanted the super special, like one in every, other box or one in every case sometimes, Marvel version, which is a cold foil, full art, like you have like the front of the card is cold foil, but then you can flip it and it's a cold foil full art version of the card that is very, very sought after and is not as easy to pull as its regular non-cold foil counterpart. This makes it so new things can enter the market, or really like an abundance of things can enter the market for players, whereas collectors will now get a new thing for them to chase. There's also all the anime art that comes out in these sets too, and I don't know if it's big on collectors. It's a niche somewhere because they keep adding them into sets, and everybody seems to like them. I know I do. So it's just like a consistent churning of like, this is how we know what we're doing. These cards are going to get reprints. These cards are going to do this. But like, when you reprint something like Shocks at the level that they did for Ravnica Remastered, they're not going to be able to print Shocks for quite some time. But in that same realm, they're also going to guarantee that Ravnica Remastered is going to sell at a decent rate, because if you're going to get a lot of Shocklands out of it, it's good for players and it's good for collectors who are looking to do to get more versions of a land, right? And importantly, it's going to continue to be sold to people, maybe even used as prize packs or things like that, because there's going to be good things in there outside of the Shocks alone, right? There are other good cards in Ravnica Remastered, and like Cyclonic Rift, another awesome staple for Commander players, and plenty of other players around the Magic the Gathering formats. And you're going to see that still hold a price point. And there's serialized versions of Cyclonic Rift too. That is insane. So now there's X out of 500 Cyclonic Rifts. The only thing that's going to make these serialized cards not be entirely super worth it is if they go the route in which I believe a lot of people expect them to, which is they're going to come out with Shocklands that are serialized in a different set 5, maybe 6, 7 years from now. And those Shocklands, while they're still going to be serialized and they're still going to be Shocklands, they're just going to be Shocklands with different art. The same card, the same number of serialized versions. It's just this is an X out of 500 version of art A as opposed to art B, which is, I don't think, very smart, but we're not there yet, right? Serialized cards have just been kind of introduced for Magic the Gathering, and I know they were just introduced for Flesh and Blood as well with Dusk Till Dawn, albeit in a very, very low quantity, like 20 as opposed to 500. So very, very low. But when you look at something like that, you have to still, I guess it's like, maybe it's just like my optimistic mind is going, is there still something collectible in these sets, right? Are they still doing something that is deemed collectible? And the answer is yes. I mean, the serialized cards sell very well, and they will probably continue to have value as long as they are not reprinted in the same style as they are now. And it's a very gray area. We don't know anything about it yet. We're not sure what their reprint policy is for the serialized versions of the cards. And unless they come out with a statement for it, we're never going to know. But I think, again, it's just like it's a fallacy, right? I mean, a lot of people will look at this product and they'll go, this product is bad because now the market is all these people who have been hoarding Shocklands from OG Ravnica or Zendikar Expeditions. Now all of their product is going to go out the window for like 50% off because they know that the price of shocks is going to get so low, nobody's going to buy their product. But collectors will more than likely still be looking for Zendikar Expeditions. I know I will. And if I know that somebody is going to panic and sell off their expeditions because Ravnica Remastered had, you can open up a box and get 8 Shocklands in it. I'm gonna pick up their stuff for sure, because then I can complete my own collection of Zendikar Expeditions. But in most cases, Zendikar Expeditions hold a more premium value because they are harder to pull. And if it's harder for a person to pull a card, there are less of them in rotation. If there's less of them in rotation, then the premium goes up, especially for collectors and people who want to bling out their deck with the best version of the card they can get. So it's a very, very weird gray area. And I'm just genuinely curious what people think about it, because I'm fine with it, honestly. I can't say I'm exactly part of the whatever they call it, the game piece army or whatever, but I understand where Wizards is taking their like mindset, and because I've seen it with Flesh and Blood as well, where the pieces you are to play with are oftentimes incredibly inexpensive. But every now and again, you could pull a really, really good card out of there that could be worth, twice the price of the box that you bought it at. Not to mention the fact that it's just release time right now. I think it's like $225 for a collector box and like $170 for a draft box of Ravnica Remastered. Give it time. It just like with any TCG, release date's going to go crazy. 2 months down the line, you're going to see product not being sold as much. People will have gotten all the things they've wanted to get, and then they're going to take their break from buying until the next set comes out with something that they need. And especially with Murders of Karlov Manor practically being, next month, I think a lot of people are already, Magic is different because you have to kind of prepare for that, right? So I'm not going to go any further. Already over 20 minutes of talking at this point, but I just wanted to get everybody's opinion, see what people are thinking, because I personally think that a lot of people are freaking out that Shocklands are going to go way, way down and it's going to be awful for everybody. But the answer is that the more that this stuff is available towards new players who want to get into the game, it is super good for the health of the game itself, especially when in the same breath they add a brand new, super expensive collectible into the secondary market on top of adding in a bunch of cheaper versions with different variants of art in the same way without making them serialized. So like now people can have more borderless Shocklands that aren't just like the ones from Infinity. And they can have different arts for their base versions of the Shocklands, or maybe they really, really dig the look of the retro frame Shocklands. I know a lot of people from the older generations of Magic, they love the retro frame look, and that's something that is really, that's something they may want for their deck. So it's all in the air, right? It's all perspective based. But I am genuinely curious to hear what you guys think. I know there is, of course, a lot of discourse about it, and I want to keep the comment section civil. I know there are going to be people who are telling me, well, like, you're part of the game piece army, you want everything to be cheap. The answer to that is no. As long as there is a collector item available in the same set, I don't care what everything else costs, right? The collector item is the collector item. Like, I don't care that shocks are $5. I care that a serialized godless shrine is worth like $700 because that's value, right? And obviously it's still not a guarantee that you can open a box and get a Shockland, although it seems pretty likely. But if you open a box, you're more than likely not going to be pulling a serialized Shockland. And that is where the chase is, right? You just got to look towards what they've made a chase and kind of work on it from there. But again, it's still very early in serialized card world here for TCGs, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to go through. Again, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And make sure to make that number go up if you guys liked our little discussion today. We're looking to work towards 2,000 subscribers. I'll probably do a pretty sick giveaway when we hit that. So I'm not sure what though, but maybe you'll tell me in the comments about that too. So thanks guys so much. I do truly, truly appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.